All right, good morning, everyone. Today is July 6th, and we are in the Assembly Chambers. I'm here to talk to you today about the need for additional housing here in the Fairbanks North Star Borough. In 2017, the Fairbanks North Star Borough, through partnership with the Office of Economic Adjustment, which is OEA, now known as the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation, OLDCC, completed a 450-page regional growth plan to better understand the growth needs associated with the F-35 mission that was being assigned to Eielson Air Force Base. This document laid out specific strategies and solutions to address these challenges with expected metrics based on meeting those goals for the full build-out. Today, I'd like to talk with everyone about the regional growth plan projections and the housing chapter of the regional growth plan. These begin on page 53 and 65 respectively, and the regional growth plan can be found at eafbregionalgrowth.com. A full update on the housing chapter is expected to be completed in the end of July. The borough is also working on an update to take into consideration the KC-135 mission and what continued growth will look like in the upcoming years. Here's what was initially projected in 2017. Key takeaways, starting on page 57 in the regional growth plan. In 2017, we were expecting 18 active duty personnel, 2018, 9, 2019, 77, 2020, 465, 2021, 617, and 2022, an additional 166 for a total of 1,354 personnel assigned to Eielson Air Force Base as part of the F-35 mission. These projections were developed in close consultation with the Air Force and included factors that would impact the ability to meet these needs, such as the number of personnel and their dependents, rank and base allowance for housing, BAH, housing preferences to include location, type, and whether folks are going to rent or buy. The housing demand for the F-35 Eielson Air Force Base growth would bring a total of 1,474 personnel to include contractors as well as the active duty personnel. This means that there would be an additional need for 974 housing units off base. The housing supply compared to demand borough-wide. The borough-wide in combination of vacant rental housing and the pace of new construction was anticipated to be sufficient to meet the housing demand for the F-35s. Preference for housing was preferred to be in the 99705 area, with roughly 85% of personnel choosing to live in that location. This proved to be true with about 86% of what we've seen so far for incoming personnel. The housing gap, there was anticipated to be a housing gap in the greater North Pole area for a total of 532 units based in 2017. And there was a need for new construction to meet that demand. Large-scale 100 or 200 unit developments of speculative rental housing was deemed not feasible without a guarantee, and so that was not the option that we pursued as a community. What we looked for was a locally driven private sector approach. This was essentially single-family duplex, triplex, and fourplexes that would be constructed over the next years to meet that demand. So what's happened since 2017 when the regional growth plan was first done, and how have we been doing with the incoming personnel? Between 2017 and 2020, we did, as a community, we did respond. We had exceeded the forecast for new construction in the North Pole area and the Salcha area, and we've got more of that information I'll go over here in a minute. We've housed approximately 1,200 personnel, incoming F-35 personnel and their families. About 85% are here already. In 2021, we're still learning, but what we do know is that there are things that are impacting our housing supply right now, and the ability to provide housing for these personnel as they're coming in. Several key factors have changed with the housing forecast since 2017 and 2018. Here's what we have seen for changes. We've seen a higher percentage of singles than forecasted, 58% versus the 46% that was initially projected in the regional growth plan. This has implications for the housing eligibility on base. Eielson is now re-ranking some of their on-base housing to allow for some of these folks to live on the installation, as well as the BAH that can be used for off-base housing. And since it's for typically lower ranking singles, the housing and type of housing that's preferred. Also, we have about 110 more civilians than what was initially projected in 2017 based on the newest data that we've received from ILSN, which is projecting about 176 personnel of these civilian personnel versus the 67 that were initially part of the growth plan. We have had implications based on the growth demand from Fort Wainwright. Quality of life improvements on the dormitories means that these units are being renovated. Over the past year, about 300 soldiers have been given authorization to live off the installation, with about 450 given authorization that would otherwise be living on base. But the key number is that 300 that we're seeing in this last year. Dorms will be cycling through renovations, but market relief is not expected until FY25, when the dorms will be coming back online and these soldiers will be allowed to come back onto the base. And then with the next several phases of dorm renovations, we're expecting to see those going out past year FY30. The other issue that we're seeing is supply. New housing numbers have slowed way down based on prior year numbers. There's a lot of things that are having impact on this. Cost of lumber is one of them. We've seen cost of lumber jump 40% in 1 week this year, and prices continue to be very high compared to normal build seasons. Sale prices have also been on a steep increase, selling for considerably more and considerably higher than we would typically see in our market. Additionally, rental rates have increased since 2017 with significant increases for 3-bedroom units. We're at 9% and 11% for housing. Base allowance for housing has not kept up with the housing costs that we've seen in our market. And overall, we've seen the lowest vacancy rates since 2015, 6% for Fairbanks and 10% for North Pole. We've also seen a role that the pandemic has played in housing. People's choices. People have decided to stay in Fairbanks, buy newer homes, or move to North Pole. A lot of these options do put additional pressure on the market, and we have not seen the inventory that we typically see in a normal housing season. The bottom line is that we were meeting these demands until 2020, and there have been a number of factors that have contributed to this. So where do we go from here? This is where we have specific call to actions for our community. We have been working with Eielson Air Force Base. They've provided us with a knee board indicating that there's about 283 more personnel slated to come to Fairbanks as based on the F-35 mission for a full build out. These folks are expected to be here within the next 6 to 8 months. Off-base personnel continue to choose to live in North Pole, with about 86% of the folks that have currently arrived choosing to live there, as our projections were 85%, so we're pretty close on those numbers. The borough is working with Eielson to ensure that we have accurate information on the numbers and composition of the incoming personnel and the faces, the folks who are actually here, so that we can better meet those demands and better communicate that to you in the market. We're working with Eielson Air Force Base and Fort Wainwright to understand other factors that may be impacting our ability to meet this demand, such as renovations for on-base facilities and other new projections for growth that are coming down the line. So the implications, what this means for our community. The F-35 mission cannot be impacted. So military leaders have shared that they will be considering other options, such as bringing up service members unaccompanied until housing can be accommodated here in the market. Also, the KC-135 mission may need to be slowed down so that our supply can catch up with demand. We have to have adequate housing for our service members when they come to our community. Also, growth of our military installations could potentially be impacted. With the Arctic strategy and the continued discussions on the need for focus on the Arctic, these things may need to be looked at as far as timelines, and so we need to definitely pick up and be able to provide that adequate housing that we're looking for. So our calls to action. Immediately, we need to provide housing for folks that are coming with the F-35 mission. We have the additional 283 personnel that are on their way, and we need to have a place for these folks to live. Rental property owners, especially those in the 99705 area, if you do have quality product, we ask that you would reach out to Eielson Family Base Housing and let them know of your availability. Their number is 907-377-1840, or you can email them at 354ces.familyhousing@us.af.mil. Builders and developers. As lumber prices come down, what are you anticipating to build for the 2021 season and for the 2022 season? Are you willing to share this with borough leadership and or Eielson leadership on what you're projecting to build for this upcoming year? And for this year, we need houses this summer as well. Realtors, what do you know about existing supply and potential anticipated construction of new units, especially in the 99705 area? Are you willing to share this with borough leadership and Eielson leadership? Fairbanks North Star Borough, we will continue to work with our local partners, both at the Air Force and at the Army, to better understand the housing need and communicate that with you more effectively. We would ask that folks go to www.fnsb.gov and visit the Mayor's Office or Economic Development Commission page for more information. We're going to continue to keep these pages updated with additional housing demand information as it comes available. We want to be a welcoming community for those members that are looking for housing here in the Fairbanks North Star Borough, our Golden Heart. Let's meet the need for these incoming F-35 personnel. We've got a lot to do. We've got a short timeline to do it, but I know that our community can do this. I'll go over a few numbers here based on the projections that we had for the 2017 Regional Growth Plan and what we actually were able to put together. So what we see is in the North Pole area and vicinity, we had forecasted 60 units a year with an average of 241 units between 2017 and 2020. We've built 115 units per year with 416 units built between 2017 and 2020. This actually exceeded our forecast by 48%. In Salcha, we expected to build 7 units per year with a total of 30 units to be built between that 17 and 2020 window. And then we have actually built 10 units a year, or roughly 39 units, roughly 40 units in the 2017 to 2020 timeframe. So we exceeded that forecast as well. The rest of the borough, we were a little bit lower. We expected 171 units a year with a total of 685 units being built. We had 102 units being built with 507 total for that 17 to 20 year window. That was less than we forecasted, but our total growth was actually slightly more. We projected 248 units borough-wide per year to be built with a total of 994 units between 2017 and 2020. And then we had 252 units being built for 1,007 units being built between that 2017 and 2020 window. So that was actually more than what we projected. And what this is showing is that most of our growth has been occurring in that 99705, that North Pole area. So as we look to the future, as we look to what our community needs to do, we definitely know that we have constriction within the market, that housing remains very tight right now. We've got a lot of opportunities in store for our community with growth for Eielson, with growth for Fort Wainwright, but we need to have adequate housing, efficient housing, affordable housing for these folks as they come to our community. So I look forward to working with all of our partners in the Fairbanks North Star Borough as we do our best to communicate this effectively to our members of the community and to our industry, and look forward to being able to meet this demand.